Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
My name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I remembered the order that we go in this week.
Woohoo.
So, yes. So that's very exciting. I know a little something about movies. I am a swordfish diver, and I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
An organization for swordfish divers.
That's right.
When you mentioned swordfish, I thought you were going to say you were a swordfish apologist, like the Hugh Jackman Halle Berry movie.
You know what's funny is that's like a really popular movie for like reaction channels on YouTube. And every one of them is kind of like, well, it's sort of fun, but it's nowhere near as good as people say it is. Like
No, that
every
movie is
channel
trash.
says that. I know, it's the fucking worst.
It's so bad.
I think the only reason people watch it is because it's the Halle Berry nude movie, you know?
I think so.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman. I mean, I would say
Sure.
but yeah.
But nobody watches Someone Like You, and that's a Hugh Jackman movie.
I
you
used
watch
to.
it. Excuse me. Pardon me.
Yes, my best friend and I used to talk about the shirtless scene of Hugh Jackman quite often.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And he uses his real accent in that, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. One of the few movies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a delightful tangent. I'm sorry that I laughed so hard, but all I could think of was when I was going to see another movie in the theater. I don't remember which it was. I think it might have been Tomb Raider.
Oh, nice. Good choice.
But there were people that snuck out of our movie to sneak into Swordfish because they wanted to see the Halle Berry nude scene. It was like, sorry, that's why I laughed really hard. It was like really stupid.
I mean, Tomb Raider is also kind of not a great movie, but it's also so great because Angelina Jolie is so great.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for going on this really fun tangent at the start of the show. Anyway, this is our last episode of the year, and as we like to do, we like to talk about our top films from the year. We like to each share our respective top 10s. So we're going to get into that, and that's always a very fun, lively conversation. But before we do that, I will mention that over on our Patreon this week, in our Patreon exclusive audio, we're talking about the winner of our Hitchcock for the Holidays poll, and we talked about the 1943 film Shadow of a Doubt, and we had a very fun conversation about that, also filled with some fun tangents. And if you're a patron, you should check that out. If you're not a patron, you should consider joining.
Yeah.
And for $5 a month, you get access to our weekly bonus episodes. And you can also vote in our monthly polls. And if you're looking for a fun last minute gift idea, you can buy someone a nice subscription to our Patreon.
There you go.
Ooh.
And also, I just wanted to mention really quickly, I forgot to say this on the Patreon, but Shadow of a Doubt was originally called Shadow of a Trout, and it was about this fish that was going around killing people. It's crazy.
I guess fish tangents are on the brain right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been murderous fish movies. Piranha.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or maybe it was
Jaws.
Shadow of a Snout. It was about a killer pig. I can't remember.
Oh, well, there we go.
All right.
Yeah. Megan is not amused by this line.
Megan's like, let's get into our top 10.
She's like, how about the top 10 for Christ's sake?
Yeah, I agree. I'm ready to get into it. But before we get there, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather, for your support.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
All right. So let's get into it. Megan, you want to start us off? I feel like you seem like you're anxious to get the top 10 conversation going here.
Am I? I feel super sleepy. So
Okay,
maybe that's why
I
you're
misread
anxious.
the situation.
maybe that's why I'm anxious. I know. But yes, I'd be happy to kick things off. I will be working from 10 to 1 in ascending order.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, technically descending order, but I think of it as ascending because you're getting to the
pinnacle.
the big one. Yes, exactly. The apex. Okay. So my number 10 film is Wicked. And
Ooh.
I briefly talked about how much I loved it on an earlier episode, a recent episode. And after I watched it, I wanted to immediately watch it again. And because I love the music, the dance choreography, the intricate costuming, the lavish production design. Um, but what really captivated me was, and what anchors the whole film, are the very nuanced and sensitive performances by Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Jonathan Bailey is also really delightful in it. He's very charismatic, very flirty and magnetic in it.
Yep.
He's so good. Like, I know he's blowing up and he's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. But yeah, I love that this film that is about not fitting in and is about standing up for what's right in the face of fascism, at its core is this really tender, loving friendship. And I wasn't expecting to love this movie so much because I love the musical, I love the book, but I was like, oh, the movie's not going to be that great. And it's got flaws, but I don't even care. I think the flaws kind of make it more endearing, and I just love it.
It is a lot of fun. I ended up catching up with it
Yeah.
after
Oh,
we
good.
voted for Bafka because the screener was about to expire, and I said, you know what? I got to see this now because I'm probably not going to venture to the theater and then I'm going to miss it. And so I watched it and I had a lot of fun too. I agree with
Right?
everything you're saying.
Oh,
There's a really
thanks.
great, two really great performances at the center, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
very nuanced, very sensitive, and just top notch production design, choreography, editing. It all fit together very nicely and was I think a really compelling story, and it didn't feel long to me. It felt like it
No.
was appropriately lengthed. And I know
Mhm.
a lot of people complain like, oh, it's part one and part two. What are they going to do in part two? Well, you know what? I feel like they actually left a lot of room for things to cover in a second movie. So there you go.
I mean, the funny thing is that's where the musical leaves off. Like, that is the spot where it leaves off, and
Mhm.
there's so much more that happens. So yes, agreed. There's a lot more to cover in the second one, and more great songs. Most importantly.
All right.
Okay, well, I'm so glad you enjoyed it too. My number 9 film is Flow. The
Yeah.
Yes, and we talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, but it's such a lovely, beautiful animated film about animals trying to navigate a flooded land. And I just love that it's about animals, of course, and community and found family. I'm not going to talk too much about this because we really delved into it when we covered it on the show, but it's such a lovely film. I just adore it. It's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It also made my top 10 further up the
Oh,
ballot.
yay!
And I believe David made yours too, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I
So
love
all
that it's
three
in
of us
all of
loved it.
ours.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that it's an animated film because I'll admit
Hmm.
animated films don't often make my top 10. Not because I don't enjoy them, not because I don't think they're good. I enjoy other movies so much more. So I was
Right,
really
right.
psyched to have this one in my top 10 this year.
I'm so glad you said that because I always feel that too. And I always feel like, but I should be awarding more, to animated films because I think of them so highly, but sometimes there's other films that are just better. Yeah. Or
Right.
more enjoyable or more impactful or what have you.
Right.
So
Hmm.
yeah, but no, this is lovely. So, I love that we all loved it. So good.
Yeah.
My number 8 film is a film we covered a while ago, In the Summers.
Ooh, okay.
I had such a visceral and emotional reaction to this film by Alessandra Lacaraza Samudio. This is a really bittersweet and wrenching and poignant film. It's semi-autobiographical about two sisters from adolescence to adulthood, dealing with their loving but volatile father in New Mexico as they visit him each summer. And I absolutely adored the performances. I thought they were excellent and expressive, especially Renee Perez, who was one of my favorite performances of the year. I loved the mise en scène. I love how much it revealed about their lives and about the family and kind of the crumbling dynamics between them. I thought it's such a moving film, and it really explores this tight bond between families as well as their own fractured relationship with their father, and the kind of complexities with having a father who loves them and is charming but is also very unpredictable and almost
Hmm.
dangerously so. And
Yeah.
so yeah, this really struck a personal nerve for me and just made me cry a lot. Yeah, I really loved this film.
Yeah. It was very moving. Actually, and I want to say to rewind a little bit, listeners, if you want to tune into some of these previous conversations we talked about in the summers in episode 532, we talked about Flow in episode 543, and I know, Megan, you talked briefly about Wicked, and that was in episode 541, if you want to go back and listen to some of these like full reviews of the movies we're talking about.
All right. So my seventh, I'm going to cheat a little. I have a tie.
Oh, okay.
But I think, in my opinion, it makes for a good double feature. So I think it kind of works. But my tie is No Other Land and Green Border. And I said, we also talked about Green Border before. And I think each of these films is one of the most important films I've seen this year, as well as just being important films in general. Agnieszka Holland's Green Border is a drama, and No Other Land is a documentary. But Green Border we covered, and it's a really sensitive and wrenching portrayal of refugees, and the corrupt police system and how they're caught in between that, and they keep getting shuttled back and forth between the borders of Belarus and Poland. And No Other Land is such an incredible and powerful documentary that was directed by 4 filmmakers, 2 of whom are Palestinian activists. One is an Israeli journalist, and another is an Israeli filmmaker. And it follows Basil, who's one of the directors, and it follows him and his family in the community of Masafir Yatta in Palestine. And it shows how the Israeli soldiers bulldoze their homes and the schools and the playgrounds, and how they're trying to hold on to their homes. It was filmed from 2019 to 2023. And it also focuses on the friendship between Basil and Yuval, and kind of shows their commonalities as well as their different lives. And it also shows families amidst the Palestinian genocide, and how people are dealing with their pain as well as their resilience, as well as trying to find pockets of joy. So I think these both make a really powerful double feature, because they're just both, they have very similar themes, and they're just incredibly harrowing and riveting and vital films, but really beautiful films. So my number 6 film is Suho, which I saw back at Sundance this year, and it just premiered recently in theaters. And it's a Mexican drama directed by Astrid Rondero and Fernanda Valadez, who are the same filmmakers who made Identifying Features, which I think this was, I don't know if it was on your top 10 list, Evan, but I know it was my favorite film of 2021. And
Yeah.
it's about a 4-year-old boy named Suho, and his father is a cartel gunman. And while he's waiting in a car, his father is killed. And the film follows him as he ages in elementary school and in high school. And it shows how violence and his father's past follow him and threaten his future. And it also shows how the women in his life, his aunts and a teacher in high school, are really nurturing and supportive. And it's such a powerful examination of masculinity and crime and intergenerational trauma, and how difficult it is to break these cycles of violence and get ahead. But it's a really beautiful film. And the ending, which shows how Suho got his name, it's a beautiful scene, and the film just broke my heart. And again, made me cry, as many films do. So yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah, you spoiler pieced me into it, to wanting to see it in that very short description.
Oh, yay! It's so good. Number 5 is another film we covered before, Dune Part 2. I know you're laughing, Dave, because I know you didn't like it. But I loved it. This is actually the film I've watched more times this year than any other film. I've seen this repeatedly. I've seen it on planes. I've seen it at home. I just love it. I think this is a stupendous and ambitious spectacle. I think it's enthralling. I think it has incredible visuals, gorgeous cinematography. I find it riveting. I love the score and the sound design and how immersive they are and kind of bombard you. I also love the critique of power dynamics and colonialism and white saviors. I love the expansion of Chani's character, who Zendaya plays, her character's expansion from the books, making her more complex, also reifying the film's central themes. And I love how it shows how seductive and insidious power can be and how easily it can warp even people with the best of intentions. So yeah, I loved the first Dune. I love this one too. So yeah. And then my fourth film is Red Rooms, which is a Canadian horror film. It's a psychological thriller by Pascal Plante or Plant. And this is one of the most unnerving and disturbing films I've ever seen. It follows a woman who's a model who faithfully attends the trial of a serial killer of young girls. And this is just a chilling examination of voyeurism and sadistic violence and misogyny. It's a really challenging film. It skewers the true crime genre. It exposes the commodification of true crime and misogyny. It's so often people love it. Obviously the true crime genre is huge and people love it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this really like delves into kind of the underbelly of it and looks at it in a very compelling and intriguing way. It's a sharply crafted film with really intentional cinematography and sound design. The cinematography sometimes slow pans, sometimes it has this like nausea-inducing zooms, and it's also got an excellent lead performance by Juliette Garepi, and it's got this propulsive pace that just builds to this disturbing crescendo. It is one of the most chilling scenes I've ever seen. And the weird thing is, if I was to describe it, you might be like, that doesn't sound that weird or that scary, but it is just so disturbing in context. It's a really haunting film that I just haven't been able to stop thinking about. So,
Another one
heard
you
of this
spoiler
one.
pieced me into.
It sounds
oh
creepy.
yay. Yeah, it is. It's really, really, really creepy and really great. And then my third film is another horror film. It is Coralie Fargit's French body horror film, The Substance, about misogyny and ageism and impossibly unattainable beauty standards, about an actress who does fitness series and she takes a black market experimental drug, which creates an alternate version of herself that's much younger, and the complications that ensue from that. And Demi Moore stars, of course, and I think this is a career best performance for her. She just lays it all out on the line in this really raw and vulnerable performance, particularly in this one heartbreaking scene where she's supposed to be going out on a date and she keeps taking off her makeup to fix it and then redoing it and undoing it and redoing it until she's like violently like rubbing her face, and it's heartbreaking. And Margaret Qualley also stars. I'm not a huge fan of her, but this is the best I've ever seen her be, so it's a good performance. I loved Coralie Fargit's film Revenge, and so I was really excited for this one before I saw it, but I had such a fascinating reaction to this. I wasn't sure I initially liked it because I felt like really like repellent and I was repulsed, and I kept mulling it over and unpacking it, and I was like, I think my visceral reaction of repulsion is the point. And I find it to be really sharply crafted and bold and unapologetic, and it lacks subtlety. Proudly wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and it's disturbing, and it also broke my heart. Like, a lot of people talk about how funny this is. I don't find this funny, although I know why people say that because there's a lot of absurdism, but I find this a really heartbreaking film. And it's got a lot of pain and a lot of rage, and it wields fury like a weapon, which I just love. And it's a really audacious and brazen film that, again, I just could not stop thinking about. I just kept unpacking it over and over and over.
I want to see it.
Well,
Yeah,
should.
I feel like I need to see it so I can weigh in, but I've heard very polarizing reactions, but to it.
I mean, I would argue that's the point. It's not meant to not be polarizing. So, yeah, and I think there's a lot of different things to take away from it. But yes, I have also, like you, Evan, I've heard a lot of people who dislike it or have issues with it. But yeah, but no, I love it. So, but I just love how I love how there's layers to it, and I love how it's challenging. I don't know. I love how it makes me feel variety of things. My number 2 film is Love Lies Bleeding. I loved Rose Glass's Saint Maud, and I love this film too. I found this a really bewitching queer thriller. I found it exhilarating and intense and seductive. I love Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien. They're both excellent in their performances as these messy, complicated characters, as they portray a lesbian gym manager and a bisexual bodybuilder who have this romance, and their the complications of one of their families who's a criminal family, and kind of how they get entwined in that. I think the two women share a really palpable electric chemistry with intoxicatingly aggressive sex scenes. And this film delves into issues of queer love and obsession and domestic violence, addiction, biphobia. It's dealing with a whole host of things while being endlessly entertaining and just really intense, which I just love. And it's got striking cinematography infused with a lot of horror elements. It's got a hypnotic score. I just loved that it's a riveting revenge story and a queer love story. I just thought this was great.
Yeah, I also had this in my top 10. I very much enjoyed it. I
All
was glad I
right.
finally caught up with it because I remember you saying that you thought I would really enjoy it. And so when I
Yes.
finally did, it was like, yeah.
I know. I'm so glad you enjoyed it too.
Yeah. I feel a little weird, a little squicky about the very like tail end of the movie. Um, I don't know what it is. It just rubbed me the wrong way. The kind of like scene where she's like, kind of in the car and all this stuff is the killing the other girl outside the car and they
Oh,
like pull
yeah.
over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really dug it. I was a big fan of this one.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I had issues with facets of their relationship, which felt, I don't, I'd probably have to rewatch it again because it's been a long time since I've watched this. But parts of their relationship felt either borderline abusive or partially abusive, and like there
I
were
hear
parts of
ya.
there were parts of their relationship that really disturbed me. Um, and I don't want to say I liked that because I didn't, but I liked that it was complicated. Um, but
It's
yeah,
very messy, but
yes,
yeah.
it's so funny. That's what I wrote in my review of this film. I wrote that these are messy characters. It's a messy film. Yeah.
It
And that's
is. It's
partly what I really liked about it.
same. Yeah, I agree with you. It definitely feels toxic's not. I mean, toxic is
But
overused, but like,
yeah,
but
right,
not toxic because
right.
yeah, their relationship is in some ways very volatile,
Exactly,
and not just in
exactly.
a it's lives up to the title of the movie kind of way.
Yes, totally. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And then my number 1 film is I Saw the TV Glow. Um, Trans feminine non-binary filmmaker Jane Schoenbrun's horror film I just found brilliant. I found this to be really sensitive and moving in how it captures both 90s pop culture nostalgia and gender dysphoria. I loved their strange and unique film, We're All Going to the World's Fair. I
Mm.
just absolutely adored that film, and I love this one too. This one features such vivid cinematography and a vibrantly hallucinogenic color palette. I think the
Mhm.
performances are excellent from Justice Smith in one of my favorite performances of the year. Bridget Lundy Payne is great too. The film is set in 1996 and it follows two teens who bond over a TV show called The Pink Opaque, which is feels very similar to Buffy the Vampire
Yeah, it
Slayer.
is. It feels
Yeah,
very very similar.
very, very, very Buffy.
Yeah.
This is a really haunting film that I think expertly captures existential dread, feeling like you don't belong, like everything in your life is a bit off, and you feel severely confined. I think it also really captures the power of art and of how that can serve as inspiration and escapism, and how you can find community, especially if you feel like a weirdo, you can find community in liking something, like in
Yeah.
fandom, and you can come together and bond over that and talk about, you're talking about, movies or a TV show, but really you're talking about these deeper issues. And I think this film really, really gets that so precisely. And I found this a really poignant and achingly beautiful trans allegory too. I just love this film.
It's very striking visually.
Yes.
The cinematography is really beautiful. I definitely voted for this in cinematography in the BAFTA awards.
Me too.
And it we talked about this I think last week. Probably I think we talked about this off mic, but I feel it captures the vibe of the 90s so thoroughly and so well
Yes.
in ways that I haven't seen in other films and TV shows. So I think that's really impressive. And it definitely, yeah, I think you're nailing it when you're saying that how much it captures the kind of like community that you form in these like
Mm-hmm.
subcultures where you're like obsessed with like a show or a game or whatever it is that you kind of like bond over. And yeah, it made me like want to go and watch these episodes of this fake show because it
Right?
felt very similar, as you mentioned, to Buffy. That's all. I mean, it's obviously that so much so that the actress who played Tara in Buffy makes a
Yes.
cameo in this movie as one of the parents of a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think for me I didn't like love the last act. It kind of like it kind of lost me a little bit, but I do see why a lot of people have been talking about this movie a lot this year.
Oh, I love the last act. I think that's where it really hits home as far as the trans allegory goes. Not that it wasn't happening throughout the whole
Right.
beginning, because it is. I don't understand how some people don't see it, especially when Owen is young and he's standing like under the colors of the trans pride flag. I was like, it's
Yes.
pretty obvious.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's when it all like kind of comes to a head is at the end. But
Mhm.
it's also when
Also
it gets its most abstract. So
that's probably where it
yeah,
lost me. No, it's
that's
not
why it's
really
just yeah.
my vibe, but I
Right.
did
That's
love
what I was
its use.
thinking.
One of my favorite uses of a Fruitopia vending machine, I'll say, to really kick it back to the 90s.
Very true. Very true.
Awesome. Well,
Wow.
that's a great top 10.
That is
Thank you.
a great top 10 list. I'm just going to break in real quick on I saw the TV Glow, and I haven't watched that on purpose this year, even though I really did love, just like all of us, we're all going to the World's Fair. I just thought that was
Oh,
great.
so good.
But we have talked about this off mic. I don't know if we've talked about it on mic so much. That just anything horror or horror adjacent this year, maybe a little bit last year, I just haven't wanted to see. And I don't know what that is about lately, considering I happily attended the Coolidge Horror Marathon this year, like I do every year. And there was some good old fashioned bloodletting in that motherfucker, let me tell you. So
Maybe it's old horror. Maybe it's like some
Yeah,
type of weird thing
maybe.
where like established horror you're more okay
maybe.
with.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, if somebody was like, hey, do you want to go watch Friday the 13th, the final chapter, like tomorrow night? I'd be like, on Christmas Eve? For totes. So I'm not sure what that's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Sometimes when things are when the world is burning, sometimes we turn to horror and sometimes we recoil from. I don't know if that
Yeah.
has anything to do with it, but that certainly could be it too.
Yeah, could be.
Yes, as Sting would say, when the world is running down, you make the best of what's around.
Thank you, Sting.
Yeah. Great song. Early Police tune. Anyway.
Sorry, all I can think of is there's a line from Zoolander where Owen Wilson's character is like talking about his influences, and he's like, "One of my heroes is Sting. The music he's made over the years, I haven't really listened to it, but the fact that he's making it, I respect that."
Yikes.
Well, Dave, shall we jump into your top 10?
Yeah. I'm not sure how much I'm going to elaborate on a bunch of these because I think we've covered them all on the show. So my numero 10 is Widow Clico.
Oh.
Which is that Haley Bennett? Is that who's in that?
Yes.
I loved her performance. I loved the not feminist subplot, the feminist plot. Her sort of quiet like "Nyeh" at the status quo, which is much more graceful than that, I might add. I loved the sort of the relationship she had with her husband who dies so young, and then the relationship she has with his grape. I guess, is he one of the manufacturers or is he the distributor? I can't remember what it is, but how their whole thing comes together, and he might have been bi, or maybe he's bi, or there's a whole thing about that. And I also love that it's short. It's 91 minutes long, and it's an entire story. So, more movies should take lessons from that. So that's number 10.
Okay.
Number 9, this is also on Megan's list.
Ooh.
In the Summers.
Yes! I love it.
I liked it for all the same reasons you did. I think that, it's just such a moving, touching, semi-tragic story about this family and this father who is a complete fuck up at the beginning and continues to be one, and then even after he gets his shit together is still kind of a fuck up. Which I think is one of the most fascinating things about it. It's like, well, now he's home all the time, but he's also a Jesus freak. So, would you rather have a father who like leaves the house at 2:00 in the morning to go get more alcohol, or a father who's like, you got to go to church? I don't think he ever actually says that. But the end when they're adults and he's trying so hard and they want to love him so badly, but they're still so distant from him. It is the most heartbreaking fucking thing I've seen in years, where you can just see on their faces, like, I love you, man, but I can't be around you. I just can't. I cannot wait to leave.
Yep.
It's roof stoof, as they would have said on Happy Endings.
It definitely is.
Yeah. Did you? I know, Megan, you liked that a lot too, right, Evan?
I did. Yeah, it did make my top 10, but it was definitely circling it.
Okay. Well, moving on. Number this is 8. I gotta look at my list. Yeah, number 8. Sometimes I think about dying.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, you're gonna find a lot of like one theme kind of running under everything, which is short, small movies about people in pain.
Yeah.
And this is certainly one. I think the thing that's most fascinating about this is, one, I think Daisy Ridley's just great. I think she should do more stuff like this.
Yes.
It's just, so many people know her obviously as Rey from Star Wars, or they know the first Poirot movie that Kenneth Branagh did. Is it Murder on the Orient Express? That's it. We've of course seen her in some other like fucking garbage, like that movie where her father Ben Mendelsohn is like hunting her after he breaks out of prison. But this is
Magpie from this year.
Thank you. This is just this quiet story about this woman who doesn't like herself, but you never know why, and the very awkward relationship she and this new guy from her office start. And you kind of think to yourself that she's just this sort of weird, like, you're not sure what her deal is, but you see that she can have fun with people. And you see that she, like, at the end, she also has that moment of real compassion with her former coworker, who you found out right as she retires, her husband has died, and now she doesn't know what to do with her retirement. and she's just miserable, and she's like so kind to her in that moment, and you're like, okay, so Fran, you're not fucking crazy. Like what the fuck is going on with you? I just love that about this movie. Like you never really quite know what, I wouldn't even say what her problem is, because it's just like, why are you like this? And not in a bad way, but like, why are you like this? You seem kind of all right as a person. Anyway, it's also just a good story about loneliness. You also find that as a theme. Moving on, number 7, Smoking Tigers.
Oh.
Yeah. We've got the two sisters whose dad is like, I'm a fuck up and I'm moving back to Korea. And they're like, what are you talking about? And the awkward friendship that the older daughter forms with like I can't remember if it's like a rich kid, but the rich kid at that prep school, the prep courses.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I don't have a lot to say about it, except I also really liked how there were definite elements of it in which it's never quite clear whether our main character is fantasizing about the thing that's happening or if it's actually happening. And I love how it became clear to me in the end, that conversation she's having on the phone with her father, she's imagining. But I don't know. I just was really moved by it's kind of funny to say it's straightforward narrative, but after we talk about whether or not she's fantasizing about these conversations she's having, but it's relatively straightforward narrative. And this, another one of these movies was like, I love you, but you're a complete fuck up, you know? So, a lot of that in there this year. Moving on, this will not surprise you at all. In fact, you'll probably ask yourselves, why wasn't this my number 1? But number 6 is Peak Season. So do you not remember that one?
No, I remember that one.
I'm getting no reactions.
No, I don't remember it that well, but I do remember it.
No, it's great. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, it's one of the rare movies I've seen in a very long time that like hooked me from beginning to end. Just because, you know, we wake up and we're in the I mean, we could call him the main character, but there are really 2 leads. And,
yes,
you know, I think you actually stay with her more than you do with him, even though you see him first. Wake up, he's in the back of his car with his dog, and then he's like brushing his teeth by the side of the road. He's like gonna go, they're in Jackson, Wyoming, and he's like a tour guide, and he's also a nomad, and his friends are nomads, and they do a lot of drinking, and they're all kind of like sad, but not, they're trying to pretend they're not sad. And then you have, you know, you have our woman lead who is there with her fiance, and they're in this fucking snazzy Airbnb, and she's just like, you know, we're getting married in like 2 weeks or whatever it is. Why are we getting married? I don't know. Like I'm not in banking anymore. What the fuck am I going to do? And the whole time you think that the boyfriend / fiance is just going to be this creep, because he's like, I got to go back to New York early. I got to go to work. And it's like, all right, bye, dude. And then it turns out he's like a really loving, caring guy. It's just he works a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And I really liked that. Oh, he's not fucking anybody from his office. He's just really busy, but he's also really concerned about what's going on with her. And like he comes back and he's like, you know what? I've been working too much and I'm going to stay with you and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then she goes and makes out with the tour guide. So, I mean, adultery, such as it is, isn't my bag really, but I was kind of like, I think you two earned that makeout though. I think you did. So
they have such an intense connection.
They really do. So yeah, that was my number 6. Number 5, Mountains.
Also in my top 10.
Oh, nice. I was like, that was like circling my top 10.
Yeah, the story of the Haitian family, longtime residents of Miami. Dad works in demolition, really. I can't remember what mom does, though she does something. I think she's a tailor, right? Doesn't she do tailoring at home? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And then works as a crossing guard too.
Right.
Yes.
Also a crossing guard. And then their son, who is, you know, like you see in a lot of immigrant stories, is like completely American, but feels really, really compelled to honor his parents as best as he can, but also feels oppressed by trying to honor them and their ideals, and feels resentment. Not like outward, like fucking hate you resentment, but just kind of like this undercurrent of resentment. Like, I'm American. I'm not Haitian the way you guys are. It's my heritage, but that's not all of my friends are American and all, they kind of make a point in the movie showing that he doesn't really hang out with other Haitian American kids. He's like, his friends are just like a big, there's Cubans and white people, and well, Cubans can be white.
But yes.
But I mean, yeah, exactly.
It's a diverse group.
Yeah, and like other black people, and so it's and he's a comedian, which is also just like, that is pretty fucking far from what your parents came from. So, and I also like that his dad is such a sensitive guy and really does say, I've been giving you a hard, at the end, all in French, by the way, I've been giving you a really hard time about not doing things the way I would like you to do them. But the reason I came to this country is so you could do the things that I wasn't able to do. And so you really just I need to stop trying to tell you what to do, and you need to stop worrying about what I want you to do and live your own life. And it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Such tenderness.
It's a beautiful heart to heart that they have in the movie.
Know. When they're not looking at each other at all while they're saying any of this, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought it was fascinating. And then, of course, like the dream house that they want to buy is one that he's demoing at the end. Oh, so sad.
Right. After it's been gentrified.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So, so mountains. I'm kind of tearing up thinking about it.
Yeah. Adeben Nazaire was my second favorite male performance of the year. So good.
I think he's in my actor list. I can't remember, but
because he was my best actor choice, my Bafka ballot.
Yeah,
I wrote this list and then I was like, send and done. Completely forgot everything. Like, I'm looking at this now and I'm like, oh, that's number 4. Number 4 is Oddity.
Surprise! Oh,
yeah, nice. There you go, a horror movie that I wanted to see this year. Although
it's a great movie,
but this is a horror. 10. Yeah, Ooh. This is a horror movie that's like scary though. It's not super violent. It has a couple of moments, but it's more. This is by the director of Caveat, the scary drumming bunny movie from a couple of years ago.
Seriously, people, see this movie. See this movie.
See Caveat, which is really good. Has, I would say, some legit story problems. But then you see this and you're like, well, all the problems that Caveat had, you have cleared away for this motherfucker, because boy, does it work from start to finish. I showed a couple of people the trailer because I was describing it to them and they're like, no, I don't know. And then I showed them the trailer. They're like, totally gonna fucking watch it. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
Like,
it's so good.
There's somebody in the house. I saw him go in. This guy who's got like one eye and then he's got a glass eye that has no pigment. And you're like, why the fuck would I listen to you? Turns out he was telling the truth. So, and there's like ghosts, and then there's like this weird woodman, and
so
which
unnerving.
Is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just completely bizarre. Describing it over the microphone here makes me sound like I've had a stroke. And I'm sort of like trying to put the words together because, like, how could all of these story elements be in one movie? Well, they are, let me tell you. So
yeah, and it all works.
Oh, and there's a cannibal, and there's a doctor at an asylum. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff. So,
there really is so much.
There's so much in this movie. But the thing that's great about it is it all weaves together and completely in a very tangible, real way in the end.
Right.
Just complete, like, makes me want to, if there are more Irish horror movies out there, and there must be, makes me want to see them, because it's like, if you guys are kind of being raised the same way or in a similar wavelength, I bet more of you are doing good horror movies. So, yeah. Number 3, this will surprise you both, considering how I talked about it on the show, but I rewatched it. I actually rewatched it and was moved to tears by Cillian Murphy's performance in Small Things Like These.
Nice.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. I just, I have always liked Cillian Murphy. I've always wondered, why isn't this guy a movie star? And what I've kind of realized is, well, I don't really think he wants to be a movie star.
No, not at all.
But there's also, he just wants to do good work in projects he likes. And this is such a quiet, melancholy, sad / well, they're two different words that mean two different things of the same ilk.
Yes.
And just heartbreaking story about this man who realizes that the convent in his town is actually a Magdalene. What do they call it, Evan? A Magdalene what?
Laundry.
A Magdalene laundry. In other words, hiding away young women who are having children out of wedlock and then giving those children away, a la Philomena. And although this is a much better movie, and all of the abuse that goes along with that, not just, of course,
abusing them, taking away their children, and sometimes telling them their children died, so they don't even know that they're still alive, that kind of stuff.
Which is what Philomena is about. She thought her baby had died. Turns out he was adopted by an American family. So, which I don't recommend that movie, although I did love Steve Coogan's performance in it. And for that matter, Philomena, was it Judi Dench? I can't remember who it was.
Sure is.
Yeah, her performance is great too. It's just that her character drove me bananas. But we're not talking.
Not a good movie.
Yeah, we're not talking about Philomena. We're talking about small things like
movie.
these. And just one of the most blood-curdling performances I've really ever seen. Emma Watson in this. Just Emma Watson? No,
Emily Watson.
Emily Watson. Pardon me. Emma Watson is what's her face? Hermione, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's funny. My brain auto-corrected to Emily.
Yeah. Yeah, not. It would be very strange if Emma Watson was a creepy nun, or should I say, a malevolent nun?
Yeah, it's a very menacing performance with very, very quiet menacing.
Yeah, very quiet but unmistakable. It's almost like the subtext is almost text. You know, it's almost like she's just saying, "We're going to bribe you here and keep your mouth shut, or we're going to ruin you."
Oh yeah, she straight up Well, I say straight up threatens him, but it's.
But then she gets the Christmas tip. I could just remember that scene when because I just watched it again, when his wife opens up the envelope and her eyes about to come out of her head like a Tex Avery cartoon about how much cash is in that envelope.
Yeah, the one where the eyes, like, there's little eyes that keep going out at you.
Yeah. Okay, so now I don't want to hear any I told you so's.
Oh.
Number 2 is Conclave.
I knew it. I knew it.
I loved Conclave so much. After we did the show that night, I fucking went and watched it again.
Nice.
So I have rewatched 3 movies this year, and my number 1 is the third one. But I rewatched Small Things Like These and Conclave, even though I'm thinking to myself, I don't have time to watch these because I got to vote on like all the fucking big budget movies that suck this year, which is most of them. And anyway, actually, Conclave had a relatively big budget just by looking at it, if you couldn't tell by the cast alone. But how you've got all of this opulence and pageantry and, supposed godliness going on when you have just these underhanded, shady backroom dealings about selecting the new pope. And your fucking white smoke, black smoke bullshit. Fuck you. I don't know if I told my ABC News story about the papacy, but if I didn't,
I don't know if you did it on mic, but you told. Yeah,
I told you too. So if anybody wants to hear it on mic, I'll tell it. It's not salacious or anything, but it's just there's a very, I would say, compelling and good reason why I did not want to watch this for the longest time.
But we told you it was good.
I know, and it was great.
Oh wait, you said don't say "told you so." Whoops, my bad.
Oh, you owe me a Coke. So.
I do. Frosty beverage coming your way.
Exactly. Okay, so and my number 1 movie of the year, we'll just go ahead and say meow.
Yes!
It's Flow.
Wow.
I don't know if this is the first animated movie I've had, is because I don't generally go in for animation, as you both know. I have made a point of not seeing What If Feelings Had Feelings Too, or Moana 2. I don't know what it's called.
Feelings and feelings.
What
Do
is
you
it?
mean Inside
Yeah.
Out?
Inside Out, yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. And well, I didn't see Moana, so I can't see Moana 2, but Flow is just this is what I like about movies. It has a story. It tells it. The animation is beautiful, but it's not flashy. It's
No.
everything, even like the few fantastical elements, like the bird descending, or rather ascending into the night sky, and the cat going but then coming back down and being like, why can't I go up? What the fuck? Even though Kitty doesn't say that. There is no dialogue in this. It's all just animal sounds. And another movie, Megan, about found family, which big thing with you. And and a thing with me, not, I don't think as profound as with me as with you, but still I do like that. And I like how these animals are all sort of forced together, but actually do end up really caring for each other. Even the bird, who's kind of a dick. So and I just, every time that the lemurs, I can't remember what it is that gets broken. Is it the hand mirror? Is that what it is? It is. I'm really sad for that lemur. I just, just because the lemur is just like, I got nothing but these couple of trinkets and the fucking best trinket of all, this hand mirror, and you broke it, you son of a bitch. So the lemur doesn't say that. I think he was thinking that. Yeah. So, and I just love the ending, how they, those dumb dogs almost get them all killed, but they still manage to save the last dog, or not the last dog, the which is the one they save? I can't remember. I just watched this again.
Oh, the capybara.
The capybara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They save the capybara, and then they all look in the water, and only the kitty was there at the very beginning, and now all four of them are there looking at their reflection at the end, and it's like, you guys are together. Lots more floods to probably watch out for, but meow meow, you got each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the whale lives. So you need to watch the credits though to see that part. Anyway, so those are my top 10.
Another excellent top 10.
Thank you.
Definitely
good variety.
Yeah, let's hear yours, Evan.
There's actually a lot of overlap with both of your top 10. Funny enough.
Sweet.
I will qualify my top 10 by saying, and I think I said this off mic, maybe to you, Dave. I can't remember if I said to you as well, Megan. When I voted in BAFTA's awards, there were two movies that I forgot about.
Oh yeah,
honestly, because I forgot to log them on Letterboxd, and I just forgot. and otherwise, they would have been in my top 10. So I definitely want to mention them briefly, especially since there's overlap with your lists. I don't know what the best way to do it. Maybe I'll just mention them quickly, and say, I can say during what movies they would have probably replaced.
Okay.
On my list. So the two movies I forgot about that I thought were really great and should have put in my top 10 were Fancy Dance, which I thought was really incredible.
So
good
wonderful.
movie.
So
good
movie. Lily Gladstone was amazing in it, and very moving, and yeah, I just felt like a complete goof for not remembering that I saw it earlier in the year.
That happens.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites. And the other one was Woman of the Hour, Anna Kendrick's movie, which I also thought was really solid. And I was like, can't believe I forgot about that. Great movie, great, directorial debut, and very tense, great true crime story. We talked about it in an episode, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think it's smart. It's a very feminist film. It has a lot of great, things to say, very poignant, and also focuses in on the victims and not on the killer, which many true crime stories don't. They kind of glorify the killer, and this movie does not do that. And it's respectful, I think, to the victims in many different ways. So, well, mea culpa, I should have put those in my top 10. I definitely think that they probably would have been I'll tell you the movies in a sec that they probably would have replaced. But I'll start with my number 10, which was Oddity, which Dave you just talked about,
Nice.
but also I thought was very creepy and very
Woo!
fun, and that I'd watch another movie about the crazy wooden monster, whatever was going on there. I would
Yeah,
see
right?
a spin-off movie, much in
If
the vein
they
of like
do a
Annabelle.
spinoff, they brought back the rabbit for a
Exactly. I
cameo
was
in
just going to
Oddity.
say the rabbit is in this one, so maybe the wooden man will be in his next film.
Mm-hmm. So
Who knows?
I definitely think, yeah. So perhaps as much as I love Oddity, that Fancy Dance or what might have edged it out. And then my number 9 was Blink Twice, which I feel like also might have been edged out by Woman of the Hour. So I kind of feel like in those, I don't know if they would be in that order precisely, like, but you know, they're in the back couple. Blink Twice was just a lot of fun. I know it didn't work for you guys as it did for me, but I enjoyed it, and so it ended up in my top 10.
It's all right.
My
We're allowed to have differing opinions. We are
Yeah,
critics.
it's true. Yeah. My number 8 was Love Lies Bleeding, which we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. So much fun. I'm so glad I caught up with it during award season.
Yeah, such a great
Love
film.
Kristen Stewart, love Katie O'Brien in it.
Yep.
And I didn't mention this before, but woo boy, does Katie O'Brien put a hurting on Dave Franco in that. Yuck.
Oh, yes.
Oh
yes,
my
yes,
god,
she does.
that is a shockingly violent end that he meets in that movie.
Yes.
I could not believe how violent, and especially like later when they're like moving his body around and it's like flopping, parts are just like flopping because they've been
Yes.
destroyed.
Yes.
Whoa, boy, what's that? Brutal.
Yeah.
And I loved Ed Harris playing a villain in it. I thought he was so gross and so creepy and just disgusting.
Love Ed
He's
Harris.
a great villain.
Yeah. He plays so many good guys. It's fun to see him kind of he didn't have a mustache in it, but I could picture him twirling it.
He did have long hair, weird long hair.
Yeah, he could have,
Yeah.
he have long hair. He could have twirled, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I was a big fan of Love Lies Bleeding. Glad I caught it. My number 7, I don't think this was on either of your lists, was Anora. I was Sean Baker's movie from this year, which I know
Dave.
neither of you loved. And I know a
I
lot
liked
of our
Mikey Madison.
Yeah, I think she was really great. And I liked it a lot more when it turned into this kind of dark comedy in the movie.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So listeners, we haven't covered Anora on the show, have we?
No, we have not.
Yeah, so to be very, very brief, to describe it, so Mikey Madison plays Honora, who's a sex worker. She's a stripper, and she meets this son of a Russian oligarch, and he's like young and dumb and has tons of money, and they have this kind of like whirlwind thing going on, and he's like, let's get married. And she's like, yeah, sure, this is fun, we're having fun. And then they get married in Vegas, and then they go back to, I think they're in what, New Jersey, Jersey, New York.
It's either no, I don't know.
I think they're in New Jersey, and then they like make it
or
back.
Long Island, and I don't know.
I want to say
Anyway.
that they're in Brighton Beach, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, you might be. I think you're right. You're right, Dave. Yeah.
So they make it back, and then his parents find out that he got married, and his parents and the henchmen that work for them have a shit hemorrhage, and basically tell them, look, we got to get this marriage annulled ASAP. And so he flees and leaves her behind, and she's stuck with these henchmen. At first it's more of a kidnapping, and then after she starts to realize what a douche and what an idiot this kid is, she's kind of like, all right, I'm on board, like, let's annul this thing, give me my like 10K payout, and let's find this fucking idiot kid. And so that's when I started to really like it a lot, when it became this dark comedy about all these people stuck in this situation that don't want to be stuck together but are making the best of it, and just having some really macabre laughs along the way. Just this bad shit just keeps happening. Like one guy just ends up like throwing up in a car, and it's just I don't know. It made me laugh. So I was a fan of Honora. I could see why people liked it, but I didn't love it like so many people do. I don't think I'm the biggest Sean Baker fan, but I see why people like his movies. So my number 6 is actually one that also didn't show up on either of your top 10s, but I know you both very much enjoyed. It's My Old Ass,
Yeah.
which is still fun to
Yeah.
say every time I say it.
It's a lovely, sweet film.
Yeah.
I have more fun picturing it as a movie about an old donkey, but you know that.
Yeah. Man, Donkey is kind of past his prime, but
Mhm.
still very important.
Exactly.
I mean, there was the donkey movie EO,
Yeah, that's true.
although
That's
that's a
true.
disturbing and sad film. Anyway.
Yes.
Which this movie is not. It's a
No,
very sweet
no.
coming of age movie, and I loved it. I thought it was we talked at length about how moved we were by it. So when I was thinking of my top 10, I definitely wanted it here. And I was definitely a big fan of the lead performances. I thought Aubrey Plaza was great. I voted for best supporting actress in Bafka, and
I think
I
I did
also
too.
really liked
Oh,
Percy
nice.
Hines White, who played Chad in the movie, the kind of
Oh,
kid that
yes.
the kid who's like so dopey but really sweet and lovable and charming. And so yeah, that was a really great performance as well. And let's see. So my number 5 was Mountains, and
Mm.
yeah,
Woohoo! Good job. Yeah.
yeah, made it in there. Was also a big fan of it, and it definitely stuck with me emotionally for all the reasons that you mentioned, Dave. And I voted for um how did you say his name? Ataban
Nazar or Nazar.
Nazar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I voted him as my choice for best actor on the ballot. And I also voted for Mountains as one of my choices for best screenplay because I just thought it was really well written movie and well done. And yeah, stuck with me. So
Hmm.
way to go, Mountains.
Yeah. Outstanding film.
Hmm.
Way to go.
Yeah. The next one on the next one on my list, as I was thinking about it, I was surprised how high it ranked. Was Flow, because as we talked
Yes.
about, yeah, it's a great film, and I don't always include animation in my top 10, but this one was so emotionally compelling that it not only made my top 10, it made a high place in my top 10. Maybe with some recency bias since I'd seen it pretty recently, but hey, I mean, Dave, you had it at your number 1, so
Yeah, sure did.
yeah, just beautiful film, very moving, captivating. We've said it all in the episode. We spent a whole episode talking about how amazing it was, so I won't belabor the point. But I think there was kind of a theme to my top 3,
Ooh.
which was
I
really
love
funny. And you'll figure out very quickly what my theme was when you hear that my number 3 was Heretic.
Ah. Oh, I
Nice.
think I know what number 2 and number 1 are, but I won't
Yes.
give myself away.
Yeah, Heretic was one that I had been wanting to catch up on for a while after hearing you talk about it, Megan, on the show. And I just had heard that it was such a fun Hugh Grant performance,
So
and
good.
love religious horror, love psychological stuff. And it just sounded like such a great premise of like these two missionaries, biting off way more than they can chew and getting stuck inside the house with this nut job played by Hugh Grant. And I just think it's so tense. It plays with the space so effectively. I love how they Hugh Grant has got like this model of his house that he's playing with and how that factors visually into the film. And it's so claustrophobic and creepy. And Hugh Grant is just having so much fun playing a villain. I want to see more Hugh Grant as the villain
Yes.
roles. He knocked it out of the park. So way to go, Hugh Grant.
Cool.
He ended up being my third choice and my best actor on my ballot. So
Mine too. Either number 2 or 3. Yeah.
strong performance, Hugh Grant. Well done. So as you might guess, My number 2
Mm-hmm.
on theme was Conclave.
Conclave.
I thought it was very funny that you and I had it in the same slot, Dave.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, big fan of Conclave. Thought it was really a taut thriller, really well done, well acted. So good. Glad that I caught it, and I'm glad that we convinced Dave to watch it and that
I
he loved it. I'm gonna keep patting myself on the back for that.
Yeah.
I won't say that thing that you said not to say. I'll just pat myself.
Megan
on
already
the
said
back.
it. It's fine.
I know. I did it. I broke the seal.
But yeah, Conclave. So after following that up, my number 1.
I think I know.
Do you know?
I think. I don't know.
My number 1 was The First Omen.
Yes.
God.
I was like, your 3 are going to be religious horror. Well, not religious horror, but because Conclave's not a horror. But
no, it's not. But the religious theme is definitely there.
Yeah.
So The First Omen. That was a movie
Omen.
I saw so early in the year, but it really stuck with me. I enjoyed it so much.
I did. I mean,
I've been thinking about watching it again because it
film.
was so friggin' creepy and gross. Like the body horror stuff in it. Ooh, it just makes me shudder. And like the cinematography, I thought was so effective. And
great cinematography.
Yeah, just really sharp and a really great prequel because just so often you see these horror prequels and they're usually so bad, right? They're usually like not worthy of existing in the same franchise. Not that The Omen is like there are other religious horror films like The Exorcist that obviously like sit higher in like the hierarchy of, you know, religious themed horror, but The Omen is a lot of fun and this movie feels very worthy of being in the Omen canon.
Totally. Yeah, it definitely earns its story and its place of existence. So totally agree with you.
Yep. And I loved Nell Tiger Free in it, and she was my number 2 best actress. So yeah, a lot of fun with The First Omen. And were you shocked that it made my top 10, either of you? I mean, you knew it was probably going to be there given the hints, but
I thought it was going to be there.
I don't know if I'm shocked, Evan, and I hope I don't sound too much like a parent, but I think I'm a little disappointed.
Whoa!
Yeah, I know you were very much not a fan of this
I'm not,
Dave.
You know what? I'm joking. I'm not disappointed because I do think that Nell Tiger Free's performance is so good that I had really wished it was in a better movie. And like I said, the scene in which, you know, there's the car accident and then she becomes spontaneously pregnant, which is also like a simultaneously she's being possessed or whatever. Is just so amazing. Like her work in that scene, the way that she moves her body and the noises and everything, just that stuck with me, if nothing else.
All right, so it made a mark on you at least in some way.
Yeah, and I do want to give them credit for, even though I knew what had happened, the opening scene in which Charles Dance gets half of his head lopped off by that falling whatever. At least they did it in a different way.
Exactly.
They didn't like, let's, you know, redo the David Warner death in The Omen. No, they didn't. It was we're going to take out the back of your head and it's going to be cylindrical.
I think that's a great opening scene.
It's all right.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
agreed.
It's great.
Yeah, agree to disagree on that one with you, Dave. But yeah. So that was my top 10. As I mentioned, a lot of overlap with both of you. But I think, you know, a lot of really fun movies that we saw this year. I know, you know, in talking to some other critics, you know, people are like, I don't know if this was as good of a year of movies. And I normally don't, you know, get on that train, like, because I think there's a lot of great movies out there. And I think if you don't feel like you're not watching good movies, you're just not watching enough movies. But I personally, this year, I feel like it was a little bit easier to make my top 10 than other years. I don't know about the two of you.
No.
It was very hard for me.
There's a lot of good low budge out there this year for me. So
okay.
Yeah, for me, there was a lot of, I agree, a lot of great indie. I actually thought some of the big budget films were good since I had 2 on my list.
Right. Dune and Wicked, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think Conclave for me.
Conclave, yeah. I mean, not that it's big, but it's more in the mid.
Yeah. It's got some money though, because it looks really good.
Right. But I mean, I think a lot of, a lot of international films were great this year. I don't know. I just think there were so many great films. But I completely agree with you, Evan, that I think if people feel like, oh, it's a bad year for film, I never think it's a bad year for film. I feel like you're either watching the wrong films for you, or you're just not watching enough. You need to watch more and broaden your horizons.
Yep. Well, that does it. That's our top 10 films of the year, our respective top 10s. This was, as always, a really fun conversation. I enjoyed revisiting some of the movies we've talked about this year, and even a few that we didn't get a chance to review on the show. And yeah, that's it. That's the episode.
That's the episode.
Yeah,
I love our top 10s.
Yeah.
I love how there's such a range. I love it.
I think we did well this year. I think two of us did really well this year. I think one of us did better than most people, but
I was like, I'm not sure where he was going with that.
Right?
I'm like, wait, he's just patting himself on the back. Okay, he's not actually dissing us. He's
no.
Good fake out.
I kid. So I think that we, the three of us, have. It's kind of. I always am interested in where our likes and dislikes line up and where they diverge.
Yeah.
And even though I disagree with you two about a lot of the things you like, I always understand. No, this is true. These are not huge. I think the biggest disagreement I had this year with you two is The First Omen, but I still understand where you're coming from.
Right.
You know, it makes sense to me that you two are incorrect, but that's fine. So
I thought you were going to say for me it was Dune.
You know what? It's not that I dislike that. It's just that I found it so completely one note. That's not, not helped, I should say, by Hans Zimmer's fucking bombastic as fuck score. And I usually love him.
I know,
but I mean, that score is so huge. It's kind of like, is there a movie here, or is it just all fucking music? Jesus, Yeah. And Evan, I'm just giving you a hard time. It doesn't
I know.
bother me remotely.
I'm not taking offense to any of it. It's all in good fun. And this, as I mentioned, a very fun conversation, and it's our last episode of the year. It's always a fun episode to go out on to kind of like recap and rehash and celebrate the movies we enjoyed. So as always, listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support throughout the year. It's been a lot of fun. My name, hold on. Want to say a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making it sound great week after week.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks so much, Otto.
You can find the show anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also go to our website, spoilerpiece.com. We are on social media. We're Spoiler Piece Senior on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and we're on Blue Sky now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're making some posts, making some waves on Blue Sky. And if you want to get in touch with us, you want to debate the merits of any of our respective top 10s or share your top 10 with us, we'd love to hear it. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 86221-piece. Almost forgot the number.
The same number we've had for 10 years, folks.
Yeah, sorry.
It happens.
Yes. Yeah, it's all right. It's not the easiest number to remember, but it was an available number that allowed us to get the word peace in the number. So there you go.
That was the important part.
Yeah, exactly.
The important piece, you might say.
Number.
Oh, important piece. Nice.
Yep. I like what you did there. So give us a call, leave us a voicemail, send us a text, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And if you like the show, please rate and review us. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and it'll take you to your platform of choice. As always, we appreciate the ratings and reviews, and it gives us more cred in the podcast world. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, this week we talked about the winner of our Hitchcock for the Holidays poll. We talked about the 1943 film Shadow of a Doubt, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, if you become a patron for $5 a month, you get weekly bonus episodes from us, and you can also vote in monthly polls like this one that we just ran. So yeah, check that out. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s movie guide, Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast, and you can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at OpinionS World or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I'm a movie type person. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And you can follow me on all the social medias except Twitter as Dave Sees Movies.
Yep. And we'll see you next year, folks.
Bye.
Happy holidays. Bye.